What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr War Games, bringing you my first plays branded Bystial profile. That's it, I updated this list. This list just constantly keeps changing. It's absolutely insane. So I'm going to take you through the entire profile, give you a breakdown on everything and the changes that I've made and the reasons behind why I've made them. If you want to see more branded Despia, branded Bystial, any particular type of branded matchups, then by all means please smash that like button, get the video above 50 likes and I'll bring that for you. I'll also show you my side deck at the end of the video as well, so you can kind of see an idea of what I was preparing for and what I did. With all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into this profile and show you exactly what we've got. Now again, most lists are pretty similar in their types of lineups, and you pretty much should be running 3 Alubas, 1 to 2 Tragedy, and then either Drama or you can be running the Ad Libitum. Now I run I changed it out for the Drama. Someone mentioned it to me, said, you know, it might be worth giving it a go. I went with Drama. I used it a couple of times. I'm not completely sold on it as of yet. Still a really good card, puts in a bit of work, but I quite like the idea of the Ad Libitum that will allow me to loop my Mirror Jade. Considering that most of the stuff is getting banished as well, so you do have to kind of play around with it a bit more, and it depends on your environment. I stuck with the 2 Fawn of Albaz. Now I was highly considering either putting this or Fusion Deployment up to 3, and instead I chose to put in Called by the Grave and the Drama Theatre. So I can't really tell if they fully worked or not yet. Like, yes, they put in a little bit of work here and there, but I can't say straight away that is the answer. Like, don't play the 3rd Albaz or don't play the 3rd Fusion Destiny. If anything, I'm probably moving closer to a 3rd Fusion Destiny just because it helps me break a board a lot more than open up the Albaz. Because if you open up like a Luba plus a Fusion Destiny, it'd be a lot easier to break a board than if you open up Albaz plus a Luba. So that's why I'd be leaning more towards that. 2 Mericoria, 1 Blazing Cartesia, the 1 Albion Dragon, and I did go back with the 1 Spring Guns kit. Now, I think these are all pretty standard in my opinion. Like, there's not really anything that was too drastic. The Cartesia is just really, really cool because if you can't get to it through the Mericoria route, you still have Fusion Deployment, so you're technically playing like 3 copies of this as well when you include that, not to mention the 2 of the Mericoria on top of that. The kit was just a last minute addition, and again it kind of lends itself more to the multiple Fusion Deployment routes, because with multiple Fusion Deployment routes you've got more ways of getting Albaz to the board, you've got more ways of getting to branded Fusion. It can help you put the cards back into your deck that you might not want to see, like a duplicate of Aluba, and kind of make it play that way. Now for the Bystials, I've kind of changed the Bystials up a little bit, so I went with 2 Lubellion, triple Saronir, 2 Magnemute, and the 1 Druid Swarm. Now, the reason I've kind of gone with these ratios here, and a lot of people kept telling me, you know, I need to be playing 3 Saronir and so on and so forth. I agree with them now. Like, after more and more testing, what makes Saronir so good is the fact that, you know, unlike Lubellion, Lubellion is one of them cards where you basically need to see it as during your turn, you are now seeing 4 copies of this, 5 copies of this. And the one thing that Saronir has over the Lubellion is this can be dropped during either player's turn if they put a light or a dark in their graveyard and they control a monster. So that's kind of why I've gone with a 3 and a 2 rather than a 3, 3, 2 and 1. This is the most important one. This is the one you want to be seeing in your hand. And if you go first, you have multiple chances of seeing it. Obviously going first as well, should you open up a Saronir and a Lubellion, happy blooming days, because then you can drop this for a Magnemute. And that's part of the Rimbrun combo that I really, really like, is you can technically Lubellion go into a Magnemute if you've already got the Saronir. Do the Saronir play, do Magnemute play, so you can trigger the Magnemute's effect to search you out a Druid Swarm during the end phase. And then what you do is off the Rimbrun effect, you actually bounce the Magnemute back to the hand, so that your end board, or like your end hand, is guaranteed of 2 Bystials. And then you've already got the Lubellion on the board, you'll have Beast on the board, you would have Foolish off the Saronir, everything else. So this lineup has worked out quite nicely for me. And the reason I've only gone with 2 Magnemutes is because, again, unless you're dropping the Magnemute during your opponent's turn, it's not as effective. So 2 has worked out quite nicely for me. A lot of people might not agree with that. And the reason I've gone with Druid Swarm over the Ball Drake is, again, just Druid Swarm is a little bit more consistent in how, like, its level of power. Like, it's just so much easier to clear it off the board. You don't rely on your opponent to do anything. You literally just go, cool, get rid of the Druid Swarm, and straight away that's going to allow me to target and send a monster. So that's pretty much it for the main kind of like Bystials, Albaz, and Despia monsters. I was playing triple Ash Blossom as the final monster in the deck as well, purely because I expected a lot of branded. I expected, like, Ash is still quite good on a Theosis as well. So I ended up facing 2 Kashtira's, 1 Darkworld, and then 2 branded. So you can kind of see the range that I was getting. It worked out really, really well. I lost a game to Kashtira's. They just zone locked me and I couldn't break it. But then after that point, I was good to rock and roll. And then the branded mirror match was really weird as well. I think some of the techs I had in this helped kind of set me apart, because like when I ashed them, they were kind of like, okay, cool, I can't go much further. Whereas when they ashed me, I still had stuff like fusion deployment and the fear to get me around it. So that's it for ash blossoms or hand traps. Then of course I went with triple branded fusion. Don't know why you'd want to be playing any less at the moment. Triple branded opening, double fusion deployment, double triple tax. It is a 42 card. Right at the last minute, I decided to put triple tax up to 2, or like add it into the deck, because I really wanted to fit Nibiru in the side deck. And you'll see that when I show you my side deck, it's a lot of 2 ofs rather than 3 ofs, but that's just because I was undecided and unconfirmed on what I was going to face. And then we've got the 1 ofs, the 1 branded lost, the 1 branded in white, the 1 branded in red, 1 regained, 1 theatre, and then of course the 1 called by the grave. Now the theatre was like again a late minute addition, because I ended up cutting the patchwork engine, and I was like, I just really want more ways of doing it. My side deck does contain triple tactic thrust, and I did consider, I was like, you know what, if my opponent ashes me and then I thrust and get into a poly, like I'm still in a good position. But I was like, if they do that anyway, talents would be better, fusion deployment would be better, and that's kind of what makes thrust pretty good in the side decks. Not only can it get you to stuff like dimensional barriers, even leads, dark holes, you name it, but it can also get you into like fusion deployments and branded fusions and everything else. So yes, it's an expensive card. This is, as you can tell already with the Starlights, it's a no budget spared build, but that's just because I really, really enjoy this deck, and there's a lot of like fun plays that it can make, and it's very, very good in basically the current format. The reason I put Call by the Grave in, and again it could arguably be cut, but the reason I put this in here was for the pure fact that the only hand trap you lose to is Ash Blossom. And Ash Blossom is going to be more and more common now. It's going to be more and more common post Tractor Extraction decks. I think everyone and like all the new players will get hold of it as well quite easily and cheaply. So I was like, you know what? If they imperm the monster I summon off of Branded Fusion, doesn't really bother me, because I'll get the materials in the graveyard for the Bystials. The only hand trap they activate and I go, okay, cool, and now I'm going to struggle a little bit to, is Ash Blossom. So I was like, alright, if I see Call By, at least I'm playing a way to chance it. The only way you can make it any more consistent is if you try to play Gamma. Yes, it's one of them cards where if you see it, great, happy days. If you don't see it, you cry and you're like, well, rip it, let's get it out of the deck. But for now, it was okay. I didn't see it. Like I said, I got ashed a couple of times, but it wasn't the end of the story, because I had like other cards that can help me deal with it. Yeah, and like the inexperienced players will ash the opening, whereas the more experienced players just hold the ash, hold it, activate Brand Fusion ash, and you're like, okay, cool. So that's definitely something to be aware of. The other weakness of this day is something like a evenly matched, and that I really, really, really wanted to get Artifact Lancer into my side deck, but I didn't get a chance to. So last traps, 1 Retribution, 1 Beast, and 1 Banishment. Yes, I have finally cut the sword. I still like the idea of it. I would say you're either playing sword or Retribution, but in the combo that you play through with Saranir and Mary Courier and everything else, you want Retribution above sword anyway. So pretty stoned on that one. The Banishment is still a really kind of cool one as well, because it lets you use your opponent's field. Yes, one of the questions will be, well, where's Super Poly? I chose not to play Super Poly. Arguably, I probably should be now. It's something that I've been considering and tinkering around with, and that's where probably your talents come out for your Super Polys. It's just one of the ones where, really, the Super Poly type you're probably going to want to run the most will probably be Starving Venom, purely for the fact that you can, if you're going to Super Poly a cash board, they have to get their strongest cash board, which is going to lock you out of 3 zones. And then what you do by that is you just go, okay, cool, activate Super Poly, get rid of Rise Heart so they can't banish your stuff, and then get rid of the Darkest Diablos, which they would have already ripped the target from your extra deck anyway. So if they saw a Starving Venom in there, they're probably going to go, okay, cool, get rid of Starving Venom. So yeah, it's something to kind of consider. It also telegraphs that you're playing Super Poly, I believe, if you have got it in your extra deck, but then you could side it as well. Moving on to the extra deck, of course, we are playing double Mirror Jade. Yeah, nothing more really needs to be said about Mirror Jade. The one Albalainatus and the one Dusk Dragon. I refuse at this moment in time to get a second Dusk Dragon, because I feel that the main reason we play a second Dusk Dragon and a second Cartesia is or more so the second Dusk Dragon, is because of Kashtira's. And I only just got this one. Ugh. But yeah, no, like this is pretty standard on this one. And then 2 Albion. The only reason you play Albion and Artis is there are times when you can get an Albion and Artis and an Albion to the graveyard the same turn. So at least you can get different effects off the back of those as well, and work it around. 2 Lubellion. I saw someone, I think I watched a profile somewhere the other day, and they were like, oh, you should only be playing 1 Lubellion. I was like, I mean, arguably, yes, if cash wasn't a thing. But like, if I'm playing a cash and I look at someone's extra deck, yes, okay, Dust Dragon is a target and the Rimbrum is a target. But I also feel Lubellion could be a target as well. So like, I don't want to give them an easy target where they're like, okay, cool, take out the Lubellion. Because as soon as they take out your single copy of Lubellion, that's no Branded Fusion Tragedy play. That's no Branded Fusion in order to kind of put other darks to the graveyard that you might want. Yes or no, obviously the ideal one is Tragedy and you're only playing one of it, so it becomes less reliant, so it is something you can consider taking out. But I just don't want to make my opponent's life any easier. If you were to take this out, you're probably going to double up on either one of these that are a higher target. Now I know this is actually quite a big target, because if they take this out of the extra deck, your Branded Fusion, you'll never be able to send... I mean, well, you could still do, but you'll never be able to send the Mirror Courier, which can be a big, like, kick in the nuts. But just something to be aware of. The 1 Brigand, the Glory Dragon, never made it, never used it. 2 Masquerades. I saw someone mention that you should probably only be playing one of them. Again, I can see the reason for playing one of them. I feel that if you're going into game 3, this is definitely going to be a target to take out of your extra deck. For your opponent, that is, but you'd still kind of want it. I feel that a double Masquerade board is quite damaging, because it means your opponent can only activate 7 effects. I know that sounds like a lot, but because they don't activate, they can't do talents or anything. So you could sit on 2 Masquerades and your opponent's like, okay, cool, I've got 7 effects. So activate the planet, activate Unicorn, activate Theosis. Straight away, that's 3 effects. Activate Fenrir, that's the 4 effects. And it's like, okay, well, eventually you're going to have to go into battle phase to get rid of one, if not both of them. And I'm still going to chip away your life points. I can see why you can only play 1. There are other targets. Like, again, this is where your space for the Super Poly targets come into place. It's also ways where you can double up the Rimbrum and double up the Dust Dragon and everything else. And then the final 3 I play is the 1 Quinteris, the 1 Proskynian, and the 1 Chimera. Again, Proskynian is down to personal preference. I really, really like this, because I just like how Dust Dragon enables both of these and lets you cheese them out very easily. Obviously, Proskynian is just so good. Like, the fact that it's a Call by the Grave, or technically just like a Monster Reborn quick effect, is, I think, is insanely good. And then Quinteris can be very, very important as well, just being able to reduce... Like, again, if you're up against XYZs or not in the mirror match... If you're in a mirror match, Proskynian is like 10 times better in my opinion. If you're not in the mirror match and you're just up against like XYZs or anything else, then Quinteris is insane, because you just reduce their attacks and they're like, okay, I guess I'm not doing any damage this turn. And the thing is, if you actually reduce your opponent's attacks, like if you put Quinteris in attack and you put all of your other cards in attack mode as well, and you activate Quinteris' effect, it means your opponent can't Zeus, because they, well, I mean, technically they could. They would have to battle with an XYZ, they would have to take the damage, and then they would have to rank up one of their other XYZs. So it does kind of give them more to think about, but, you know, I still like these lineups. Like I said, there's a couple of flex spots, depending on how many Masquerades you want to play, whether you want to play the Brigand, whether you want to play double Dust Dragon, when you want to play 1 Lubellion, 2 Lubellions, double Rimbrum, anything like that. So there's a lot of flex spots in those kind of areas, depending on personal preference and local environment and everything else. But personally, I quite like where this is going. But as you've seen from my previous profiles, every single one of them, every profile I do that for branded, like a card, at least a couple of cards have changed, and I try to explain the strategies behind them. For the extra deck, I was going with 2 Nibiru and 2 Lava Golem. I played a lot of 2-ofs, like I said, because I wasn't 100% set on exactly what I was going to face. I went with 2 Dark Hole, and the reason I went with 2 Dark Hole was I was like, if my opponent Ibly locks me, I can't play. If they Ibly lock me, Nibiru's dead, Lava Golem's dead, Dark Hole's kind of like the best thing I could have, and that's where Triple Tactic Thrust can come in and play as well. So I'll show you that in a minute. 2 Book of Eclipse, obviously great against an Ibly lock as well, because you book a moon everything and you're good to rock and roll and do everything you need to. But then for the Triple Tactic Thrust, we went with 2 of those, 2 Evenlies, and Triple D Barrier. Obviously, you could put Lightning Storm in here, you could put Harpy's Feather Duster and everything else you want. But the way that I saw it is Triple Tactic Thrust had loads of options for me. Like if I was going first, it gets me a D Barrier, it could get me a Banishment if I wanted it as well. I could get to a Talents if they've activated it in the main phase. I could also get to a Fusion Deployment going second, which helps me break a board depending on what board they've set up. It's another route to a Branded Fusion as well. So I had loads of different options to kind of get to it. It could also get you a Branded in white, not that you want it to, but there might be those times when you've got stuff in the graveyard and you're good to rock and roll. On top of that as well, it could also get me into the Dark Hole if I'm trying to break my board. Like, if I'm going second and I know my opponent is playing in the Ibly lock or the Cash lock or anything like that, then I can make my opponent's going to activate Shangri-La straight away in the standby phase. It'll be rare if they don't, unless they're really trying to play around this. And then I activate Frost, and then I can search out evenly or break the board. If I've got the Ibli on the board, I can search out the Dark Hole, activate the Dark Hole, nuke the board. Yes, I will still have like three zones locked at that point, but then I still have the extra monster zone and 2 more zones to play with. In a deck like this, it's quite easy to do. So like that one card has ended up getting me to a board clear under Ibli. It's getting me to a go first, turn off XYZs and good to rock and roll. It's getting me to a board breaker in evenly, which is why I've now gone to 2 instead of 3, because technically with Frost, I'm playing, like Frost can search me out multiple copies, like different options. And obviously evenly is only going to be good if you have an empty board, ideally, or if your opponent, if you go into a really long grind game. So in an ideal world, I'd probably want to play like 3 Frost and 1 evenly, and then you could play like ones of like Dark Holes and D barriers and everything like this. You could loosen these down. But I feel going first, like I'm like, okay, I really need to see this. So depending on the matchups, depending on availability, if you've got Frost or anything like that, then definitely worth it. I think I picked mine up when they were like 45 to 50 pound, and yeah, it's a good card to pick up at that price. Like when it starts hitting the 70 pound, which I believe it's starting to crawl up to, that's when you kind of go, okay, maybe it's not like, it's great going second. Like don't get me wrong, if you only build go second decks, best card you could possibly have. If you know you're going to be going second more times than not, like if you're going to be going second game 2 and 3 and you really want to risk it, definitely worth picking up. But if you're not going to do any of that and you're not going to play it any differently, then you're going to be looking for a little bit of trouble. Anyway, that is it for the profile. I hope this has given you quite as much in-depth knowledge as I could possibly muster up for you guys as well. If you do have any questions at all, as absolutely always, then please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, guys, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.